Hello. It's conference time in the UK, that is, political party conferences. We have a sort of rotating system here whereby the conferences of the three main parties are coordinated so that one year it's Labour first, then the Conservatives, then the Lib Dems or whatever, and the next year it's the Conservatives first, then the Lib Dems, then Labour. Something along those lines. It's not so much that they don't want to tread on each other's toes as that they want to give the press time to report things. If there were two conferences going on at the same time, then there'd be too much news all trying to funnel into the same outlets. Right now, the Labour Party are having their conference. The Conservatives are due in the first week of October, while the Lib Dems had their conference between the 17th and the 20th of September. But hardly anyone noticed. I certainly didn't. And this is their conference advert. At this point, I could make the usual joke about the Lib Dem conference being held in a telephone box, but the prevalence of mobile phones in this country nowadays means that there aren't many telephone boxes left. So, alone among the parties, the Lib Dems decided to spare their own blushes by making it a virtual conference online. And that's it. Once again, the Lib Dems have consistently not got the idea. They were all for remaining in the EU, despite the general feeling in the country, well demonstrated by the vote, whatever the BBC says, that we didn't want to be in the EU by an overwhelming majority. And now they think that a virtual conference is a substitute for a face-to-face one, without considering that the whole point of these party conferences is to get drunk with your political colleagues. Here you are, here's the leaflet. More debates, more conversations, more connections. No, but you're fooling yourself. You're trying to pretend that this is a good substitute. You're trying to pretend that you have a party that people want to attend conferences for as well. In fact, it's the precise opposite in every way. But that's the Lib Dems for you. And as for the Labour Party, well, they don't get it either. And they're getting further and further away from getting it as well. To prove that to you, we have this delightful snippet from an MP called Angela Rayner, who is, by the way, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, which only goes to prove that the entity masquerading as a respectable political organisation is really nothing more than a bunch of student radicals, because that's how she's talking, with a bee in their bonnet. So this is the headline. Fury from the Tories as Deputy Labour leader Angela Rayner brands them scum. Now, look, this is supposed to be a political debate. Calling somebody scum is no way of starting a debate. According to the Mail, Miss Rayner described the Tories as a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic. I want to remind everyone that the Tories have had two female prime ministers. Not bad for a misogynistic bunch, is it? The Labour Party hasn't even had a leader. Except for one pro-tem one, Margaret Beckett, in between them losing one and electing another. The Tories also seem to have had more ministers who were, let's go to the homophobic. Well, as I said, the Tories also seem to have more ministers who have been openly gay. I'm not sure about the numbers. I haven't checked that out. It's just an impression, but it's certainly a countable number. I don't recall any Labour ministers of that proclivity. So, homophobic? I don't think so. As for racist, let's take a look at the present cabinet, should we? We have to remember that at the last Labour conference 2 years ago, a Jewish Labour member of Parliament had to turn up with a police escort because she had so many racist threats. This is Boris Johnson's cabinet, by the way. Well, I don't remember the Labour Party ever putting a member of an ethnic minority into a job like Chancellor of the Exchequer or Home Secretary. So, well, let's just go through this again. She's almost incoherent with rage. This is what she said. "We cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum. Homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute pile of Banana Republic, Etonian piece of scum." And I held back a little. That I have ever seen in my life. It's not even coherent. She's just spitting hate. If you can't think of anything worse to say about anyone than where they went to school, you really do have a problem, don't you? So I want to point out what she had to say. Well, apart from the fact that Johnson went to Eton, it's not only inaccurate, it is actually the precise opposite of the truth. It's not a political opinion anymore. And that's exactly the point. Throughout the Western world, and this is happening in the Democrat Party in America, I'm not that sure about Australia. I think everybody's at each other's throats there. But throughout the Western world, it's become the fashion for leftward politicians and political parties and pressure groups of that sort, not only to ignore what their opponents are doing or saying, but to relate what they do and say, as I said, as the precise opposite of what they're really doing or saying. We'll start with the accusations against Trump. They weren't just baseless speculations. They were absolutely what Trump was not doing. But they were repeated as truth again and again by the left with no shame, and I suspect not even a recognition of what they were doing. It's the same sort of mindset you used to get when communist supporters in the Soviet Union talked about how free their society was. I'll finish this with the Foreign Office Minister, James Cleverly, who responded with a similar bit of strong language, but this time accurately. He said, "I'm sure this went down well in the room." And yeah, and what he's saying is that they were like a bunch of student radicals and they'd listen to that sort of thing and cheer their little hearts out. "I'm sure this went down well in the room, but when voters look at the party that has both female prime ministers, that has had both female prime ministers with half of the great offices of state filled by women, half by BAME, most diverse government, more gay ministers than Labour ever had, etc., they'll know she's talking crap." I just hope he's right, because I can't quite give you a reason for it. But recently, a lot of people seem to be having a real problem with truth. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.